arguing over who would be more help. Boys, go and get me some cinnamon from the basement cupboard, Polly asked, even though she did not need any more cinnamon for the cake. Davy and Joel went down to the basement. Polly carefully measured the bland flour, water, butter, and cinnamon. She mixed it together with Grandma's raisins. She poured the batter into the cake tin, put it in the cranky black stove, and happily banged the door shut. Polly took Francie into her arms and sat back to wait until the cake was done. That's when Polly heard a thump from the basement. "Joel! Davy!" Polly called. "Come up here this instant." Joel and Davy trooped up the stairs and into the kitchen. Their faces were dusty with cinnamon. "What happened?" Polly asked. Francie's eyes grew round and large. "We were wrestling," Davy began. "The sack just fell over on us." "Honest, it did, Polly," Joel interrupted. "Goodness, let's get you cleaned up before Mamsie comes home," Polly said. She jumped up and cleaned off their faces with a wet dish rag. Francie saw it first. A wispy curl of black smoke rose above the cranky old stove. "Mamsie's cake!" Francie cried. Polly raced over to the stove, yanked out the cake, and set it on the table. The beautiful cake was just ruined. It was black on the top, and the center had fallen in. Polly turned around and shouted at the stove. "I hope you're happy. You've spoiled Mamsie's birthday, you mean old thing." Without warning, Polly sank down to the middle of the floor and began to cry as hard as she could. Francie, Davy, and Joel didn't know what to do. Well, "What's happening here?" asked a kindly and cheery voice. Everyone turned around. "Mrs. Beebe!" cried Davy. "Look, Polly, it's Mrs. Beebe." Mr. and Mrs. Beebe owned a shoe shop in the town. They had gone out for a ride to pick some flowers and buy some candies. On their way back to the town, they heard the fuss in the little brown house and stopped to see if they could help. Polly hopped to her feet, ashamed. She wiped away her tears. The children explained to Mrs. Beebe about Mamsie's birthday the next day and why Polly was crying. "My goodness, you poor things," Mrs. Beebe said over and over as she heard the sad story. "Here, my dear, here are some flowers for you," Mrs. Beebe said, handing a bunch to Polly. "Thank you, Mrs. Beebe," Polly said, smiling through her tears. Polly looked sadly at the black top and deep hole in the center of the cake. Then she looked at the flowers in her hand. "I know!" Polly exclaimed. Polly placed a bunch of flowers in the hollow center of the cake. The flowers covered up the hole in the black top. "It's beautiful," Francie said. "It's perfect," Mrs. Beebe agreed. "Thank you, Mrs. Beebe," Polly said again, this time with a wide smile. "We must get back to the shoe shop," Mrs. Beebe said, pleased that all was well. This much for today. Come on, tomorrow.